What's up, guys? Let's talk about the Dallas-Detroit game real quick. Couple and kind of the controversial ending, which, if you understand or know football, it's really not that controversial. The entire game can be summed up in one word: Dan Campbell's stupidity on multiple occasions lost Detroit the game, and it's that plain and simple. And when it comes down to it, a couple things I want to get into first. One, I was really impressed by both defenses. I think most of the people out there thought this was going to be a 30, 40 point shootout. And both defenses surprised me at how well they played. Dallas against the run, but Dallas also didn't surprise me how well they played against the run, because point number one, if you haven't watched the video from Christmas Eve after the Miami loss, go back and watch that one, because we talk about it. And I said in that video, if Dallas wants to stop the run, the solution is already in-house. It's already on the roster. It's put Micah Parsons back in his natural position playing linebacker so he can stop the run and use his athleticism to go sideline to sideline and fill holes. He's the best linebacker on your team. I don't need Micah Parsons on 1st and 10 playing defensive end. He's an undersized defensive end, and he's a bad run stopper at defensive end. I don't need him there. I need him there on pass rush downs. If you're not using him on a pass rush down, he's worthless at defensive end. It's a stupid place to have him. And what did Dallas do? They were rotating him from end on pass rush downs, which is what I said to linebacker on run downs. And because he was playing linebacker on run downs, it allowed Dallas to get kind of versatile with their defense. Detroit never really knew where he was going to line up. They were able to send blitzes from the linebacker position, match him up on the center at times, and he was able to help plug up holes and stop the run. The other thing that helped was Dallas's defensive ends in general aren't really that bad against the run. Guys like Dorrance Armstrong, who's about 292 pounds. I'd much rather have Penei Sewell up in his pads than a 235, 240-pound Micah Parsons that he's going to push around like a rag doll in rundowns. So, and we saw it on multiple occasions. Not only did Dorrance Armstrong come in and get a sack, but he and Fowler did as well. But also, he made crucial stops in rundowns, and people weren't able to power run the edge. So, and it also got Marquise Bell off the field on rundowns, which is what you want. He's a safety. He's not a linebacker. And if you want to use him as a hybrid linebacker on pass downs to get better coverage on tight ends and things, okay, so be it. But on rundowns, once again, he's out of position and worthless. You're putting too many small guys in the box. And because Dallas put Micah back at linebacker on rundowns primarily, all of a sudden Dallas's run defense looked pretty good for the most part. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about on the other side defensively was Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson was really, really good in this football game. And Dallas had a clear plan, which you would think should have worked, which was, we're going to leave him one-on-one with Tyron Smith. We're going to put Tyron Smith on an island and find out how good this kid is. And I think like most people, thought, yeah, Hutchinson's good, maybe a year or two away from really being an elite pass rusher, still has some development. But he proved last night he's elite, because he multiple times beat Tyron Smith. And Tyron Smith is having one of the best seasons of his career, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the best left tackles of all time. And when Tyron gets up in your pads, you don't get away. And on multiple occasions, Aiden Hutchinson was able to beat Tyron Smith one-on-one. And that is a testament to he has arrived. He is a top 5 pass rusher in this league. And Detroit, if they can get somebody opposite him, is going to have a lot of good years rushing the passer to come. So two kind of scheme things wanted to clear up real quick. Now let's get into kind of the points of the day. So point number 1, let's get this out of the way off the jump. Detroit did not get screwed on the 2-point conversion call to Decker. They did not get screwed. It appears he reported. The ref had a different number than his. Maybe the ref got it confused. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's your job as the player, your job to make sure the ref knows it is you and you are reporting. It's your job. So, like I said, that needs to be clear. And the other side is that play doesn't work. If the ref did get it screwed up, that means they announce it to the defense. They tell you who's reporting as eligible when that happens. So that means the defense was looking at number 70 as eligible. If that is what actually happened, that means Dallas left Decker alone, which is why he was open, because he was ineligible. They weren't worried about covering up a guy who is ineligible. They were told 70 was who was reporting eligible, so they were worried about 70 sneaking out, not Decker. So that's problem number one with this theory, that Dallas got caught off guard by a guy that they were told was ineligible that went out for a pass. That's problem number one. Problem number two, he was not eligible. The reporting does not matter. We have a Kadarius Toney situation. You have to be disciplined and you have to understand how to line up and check with the referee to make sure you're on or off the line of scrimmage. Whether Decker reports or not, when Detroit lines up on the football, he is ineligible. I believe it was number 8, Reynolds, who was the wide receiver on the outside, who lined up on the line of scrimmage, which covers him and makes him ineligible by formation. He is ineligible by formation. So Reynolds screwed up the formation and lined up over top of Reynolds. Or Decker. He's ineligible. It's over. And if they had noticed the wide receivers and the way that they were aligned, there's one or two penalties going to come on the play. Either Decker's getting called for ineligible or it's illegal formation. Too many guys in the line of scrimmage. Either way, play gets called back. And it's not wrong for him to be called ineligible because he got lined up with a guy over top of him. If Reynolds is on the line of scrimmage, he's ineligible. Period. So let's just get that out of the way. And Dallas got called for this exact same thing earlier in the year at Philly. They lined somebody up as eligible, they reported, and Dallas lined a guy over top of him and immediately got flagged for illegal formation. So it's happened. This exact same thing happened to Dallas that cost them the game in Philly. If you don't know where to line up, that's your problem. Detroit's wide receiver Reynolds made a stupid decision and didn't check with the ref and didn't get himself aligned properly and set him up in an illegal formation, which then caused a flag on Decker, whether he reported eligible or not. Because you can report all you want. You can report and then line up in a formation that doesn't make you eligible, and that's not illegal. So, I'm tired of the whole Detroit got screwed. They didn't get screwed. They screwed themselves. Lack of discipline and lack of focus in a critical game-changing moment is what lost them the game. Basic middle school 101. Am I on? Am I off? On, off. Checking with the ref. Basic. You've been doing it since Rocket Football. Cost them the game. Secondly, and that first point with Reynolds covering him up, it really, really bothers me because all the big media shows and all the national shows, nobody talks about it. Nobody says anything. They're, oh, well, it looks like you report. The report doesn't matter. That's a non-issue. They didn't say that he didn't report. And they said that they thought somebody reported this and that, supposedly, but there's no audio, so we don't know. But it doesn't matter. The reporting wasn't the issue. The issue is he's covered up. He's ineligible at the time of the snap. That's the issue. And everybody wants to avoid the real issue and try to make this something about the refs. It's not about the refs. He's ineligible. The refs made the right call. Regardless of whether he reported or who they thought reported, the refs made the right call. He was ineligible at the snap. the other side, I understand the fact that teams, especially on the road, you're saying, we're going to go for the win. We're going for it right now. I think it's a dumb decision. You kick the extra point, you send it to overtime. But I can understand it. I'm not going to kill Dan Campbell for saying, hey, we got the momentum, we just scored, we want to get out of here right now with a win. Fine. But then you got it called back. The penalty backs you up to the 5. You do not go for it from the 5-yard line. And then not only that, you go for it again from the 5, get stopped again, and Micah Parsons, once again, lack of focus in a critical moment for Dallas. Micah Parsons does exactly what your wide receiver just did and line up out of position in the neutral zone, and you get an interception called back and get a third chance to send the game to overtime. And you go for it again and miss. You want to go for it once, so be it. You got a penalty. That penalty bailed you out and gave you an opportunity to go for it again. You go for it again. Micah Parsons bails you out, gives you a chance to go for it again. You don't go for it 3 times instead of sending the game to overtime. Especially when you're Detroit and your offense has been going right down the field in the second half on Dallas, and you just went right down the field and scored. All you got to do is get the ball and go down and score. And all you got to do is get a field goal. And then Dallas has a chance to match or beat you. I mean, you always live for the next play. The fact that Dan Campbell is going to play the aggressive card so hard that he's going to go for it 3 times when currently your offense is sputtering. Clearly, now that you've just scored, your offense is sputtering. You can't line up on sides. Guys are covering guys up. It's illegal formation. You're throwing interceptions, then get bailed out with a penalty. Your offense is completely sputtered. And at that point, once you get that call back, because the momentum here is huge, your offense has no momentum. Once you think you've won the game, and then a penalty takes the game away, there's no momentum. None. Absolutely none. Your team is now reeling, saying, oh my God, we just got robbed. You have to kick the extra point and give those guys a chance to settle down and refocus, which is your job as coach. Hey, wake up. Penalty doesn't matter anymore. We got to go win this football game. Wake up. You can't do that in 25 seconds before the play clock runs out. You got to get them off the field, get them on the sideline, and get them back ready to play football. The momentum has completely, these guys are reeling, trying to control their emotions of thinking that they just got robbed of a football game. You can't leave them on the field after that. You can't do it. Momentum is huge, and you had no momentum at that point, and your offense is reeling, and guys are pissed off, and nobody's thinking clearly. You can't go for it, especially from the 5-yard line in that situation. That's just dumb. It's absolutely dumb. It was dumb to go for it in the first place, but if you want to go for it, I'll listen to you. Okay. It was really dumb to go for it the second time, and the third time's a fireable offense. Now, obviously, Detroit's been bad for so long, and Dan Campbell's done such a good job getting them back to relevancy. Obviously, you're not going to get fired. But if this was a different football team, Dan Campbell might not have had a job on the plane ride home. I mean, it's just that simple. And earlier in the game, yeah, and that's what all these calls are, is you're the hero or the idiot. And earlier in the game, they got away with a hero play. They run a fake punt deep in their own territory, pick it up, continue a drive. I think they get some points out of that drive. But once again, you don't go for it there. You don't run that fake punt there. You don't do that, because if you don't get it, you now have just automatically given Dallas a field goal. And then on top of that, more than likely, it's such a short field, you're probably gift wrapping them a touchdown. So the aggressiveness should have screwed you there. And the kid, who's not a quarterback, obviously, made a hell of a throw on the run with a guy bearing down in his face, and it was a hell of a throw and a good catch. I mean, you got a guy who's inexperienced, off balance, throwing on the run with a guy about to hit him. I mean, it had disaster written all over it, and you got lucky. This, and earlier in the game, you passed on a field goal that would have made it 7-6. You passed on the field goal and went for the touchdown because you were overly aggressive for no reason. It's the first quarter. Kick the damn field goal. It's the first quarter. What are you acting like you're chasing points for? It's 7-3. Kick the field goal. It's 7-6. Field goal wins it. I mean, that's the thing with these games is everybody's like, oh, well, when it's early, we got another down, we got more time, we got this, you don't know how many points you're going to have a chance to score. And you always have to play as if the game ended right now, how do I win? Right now, you need to kick field goal, make it a 1-point game, because if the game is going to end with things how they are, all you need is a field goal to win. You don't know. That game might end. That might be the last touchdown Dallas gets. The game might end 9-7 with you kicking 3 field goals and them getting 1 touchdown. You never know. So you have to take points and put yourself in positions to win the game. The only time you're chasing points is when you don't have enough time. You're not chasing points is when you don't have enough time to take field goals. And we have to get 4. This is our last opportunity with the ball. We have to go for this 4th down. You don't just constantly do this shit throughout the game. Like when you have a really good offensive drive, you're going 60, 70, 80 yards downfield, you get a 4th and 1 or a 4th and inches, you go, yeah, we've been running well and we're moving the ball and we're going to keep the momentum going. Here and there, yeah, I understand those calls. I get those calls. But when you're just randomly saying, well, we're going to go for it here, we're going to run a fake punt here, we're going to pass on points here. You lost that game because Dan Campbell was overly aggressive and it was complete stupidity that cost you that football game. Because looking back now, Detroit, looking back now, you want that field goal, don't you? You lost by 1 point. You wish you had those 3 points now, don't you? Stupidity. Like I said, you never know how the game's going to play out. You have to get points when you can get them. And the fact that you passed on points is why you're in this situation. Dan Campbell's stupidity to pass on points, stupidity to be way too aggressive throughout the whole game, and stupidity not to send a game to overtime when you had 3 chances is what lost this football game. Point blank, period. And being undisciplined and not knowing that you need to check with the ref before you line up, how many freaking times have we saw that now this year? It costs Kansas City a game, and now it cost you a game because Reynolds covered up your eligible receiver and got you a flag, and that's why the flag was thrown. He's ineligible at the point of the snap. Multiple flags came in, and that was the report. There was multiple flags. One was for illegal formation, and the other one was for the eligibility. They're both 5-yard penalties. Pick and choose which one you want. Doesn't matter. It wasn't going in either way because Reynolds pulled a Kadarius Toney. And after he did, Dan Campbell should have understood the moment, the momentum, and where those guys' heads were at spinning and kicked the extra point to send it to overtime and regathered versus putting these guys with their heads clouded, just blind with rage and confusion, right back on the field 3 times to officially lose them the game. It's just dumb, guys. It's just absolutely dumb. Brandon Staley started all this. We're going to go for everything on 4th down. We're going to be super aggressive in our own territory bullshit. Where's Brandon Staley now? Oh, that's right. He's fired. He lost his job. How well did any of that stuff ever work out for Staley? What did they ever win? How many big games did they ever win? Oh, that's right. They didn't. And they never did anything. They never got a playoff win. Oh, yeah, that's right. It never turned into meaningful wins, which is what this all comes down to. When you play good teams, you can do that aggressive bullshit against the Vikings. You can do it against the Bears. You can do it against teams with a backup quarterback or the Patriots or Indianapolis. You can do it against average and bad football teams. You get overly aggressive and you decide to pass on points against good football teams, you will lose 90% of those games. Dallas lost to Philly. Why? Because they passed on 2 field goals in Philly. Those 2 field goals would have won them the game. Detroit lost to Dallas. Why? Because they passed on 3 points early and they made a dumb mistake at the end that cost them when they needed to try to get those 3 points back. They were chasing points the rest of the game from the points that they missed early that they openly and willingly passed on. Most NFL games are decided by 3 or less points. That's the league average. I think the league average for 20 years has been most games are decided by 4 points or less. When you pass on 3 of them, it's big. It's big. And more often than not, like I said, these games are all close. More often than not, 3 points here and there matters. It matters in the scheme of things. And we saw that with Detroit. Oh, God. Did those 3 points matter? When you look at the final score, God, would you have liked to have those 3 points instead of coming away with 0 there? God, would Dallas have loved to have those 6 points instead of coming away with 0? You can't beat good teams like that. You play the San Franciscos, you play the Cowboys, used to be the Eagles, but it doesn't look that way anymore. But the Eagles keep every game close. Play the Eagles, you play these good teams, tight games. Points matter, and you can't pass on them because you'll always look back saying, damn, if we had that field goal. Damn, if we could have got that touchdown from the 1-inch line. Every play matters. Small margins. Overly aggressive stuff doesn't work. This whole let's play it like we're playing Madden, this is real life. You don't go for it on 4th downs in your own territory. You don't pass on field goals for no reason, and you don't go for 2-point conversions when you can send a game to overtime. It's that simple. So, sorry, Detroit, but the only one you have to blame for this loss is Dan Campbell. And I like Dan. I think he's a good coach, and he's the type of coach that Dallas needs because he's a motivator. And he's a get you ready to play every week guy. Get you fired up. It's a leader of men. But he needs to take a hard look in the mirror at his game management and his decision making. Because what he did in Dallas was take a masterful performance from his Detroit team and what would have been a heroic, epic comeback. And he threw it all away based on his decisions and his lack of attention to detail, his lack of control of his own emotions, saying, we're going to get him up, send him right back out on the field. Okay. Well, the cooler heads would have prevailed if you would have let them regroup and go into overtime. Maybe cooler heads prevail. Instead, your emotion and lack of understanding the momentum and emotion sent a bunch of guys who were not ready to play football in that moment back on the field 3 times and cost them a football game. Dan Campbell's stupidity lost this game. His absolute stupidity. I don't want to hear any more about the refs. I don't want to hear any more about the ineligible call. It's Dan Campbell's stupidity. Because, one, you should have never been going for it in the first place. And 2, they made the right call. Wide receiver covered him up. He wasn't eligible. And you lined up in an illegal formation, which was also called. It would have come back anyway. Dallas got to pick which penalty they wanted. It was coming back either way. It's just unreal, man. It's unreal. You should have kicked the extra point, and you didn't. And because you didn't, that's why you're in this situation. Stupidity. To guarantee yourself, essentially, a 99% conversion rate to send yourself to overtime, you pass on. To go for something that only converts about 45% of the time. Just sad. Sad for Detroit fans. Detroit's my second favorite team. It was a hard game for me to watch as a Cowboys fan. But at the end of the day, it was a great game that at the end, for once, was sullied by somebody else's coach instead of Mike McCarthy's bad clock management, late game decisions. Sad, Dan. Sad. See you guys.